Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Well, joining Nancy and I on today's Big Blend Radio Toast of the Art show is the amazing guitarist, Mark-Vickness. He has spent over 2 decades as the instrumental half of the duo Glass House with singer David Worm, and they have released 3 albums, an EP, and they do a lot of different performances. And go check them on YouTube. It's really cool. And also just Google Mark on there, too, because he does a lot of videos as well. And he's joining us today to talk about his beautiful debut solo album. It's called Places, and it is inspired by his experiences traveling America. It is.
I'm jealous.
I know. It is the most beautiful, exquisite album. I love these instrumental albums that just allow you to feel nature and just feel things. You know, we always talk about sense of place and travel, Nancy, and
right.
His album, I Want to Take It Everywhere, and match it to parks.
How fun is that?
I know. I feel the sequoias there, but I know. This is exciting. So, everyone, you can go to his website, markvickness.com. The album, of course, is on iTunes, Apple, CD Baby, all those places. But before we bring him on the show, take a listen to the very first track on the album, connected to an area Nancy and I love, the Sierras, the High Sierras. Beautiful, it's Ansel Adams country.
Yeah.
And John Muir country, and just magnificent mountains and lakes. And speaking of that, this is called Thousand Islands Lake. So stay tuned, enjoy, and we'll bring Mark on the show as soon as you've heard the beautiful song. Here it is, Thousand Islands Lake. listening to Big Blend Radio with Nancy and Lisa, and you just heard Thousand Islands. It is the first track of the brand new album, debut solo album by guitarist Mark-Vickness, and you can go to his website, mark-vickness.com. The album is called Places. It's inspired by his travels, and as you could hear, it's absolutely beautiful. And I want to welcome Mark to the show. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, we love this. I know Nancy's making movies in her mind right now.
Yep.
And at the beginning I said it was Thousand Islands Lake. Is that where you wrote that, or is that the area in the Sierras that inspired the song?
Yeah, that's the location that inspired the piece. I did not write it up there. It's a very special spot for me because that is where my wife and I got engaged.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah,
well, we like that.
Yeah, so it was. The lake itself is around 10,000 feet, and my wife is a lifelong mountaineer, and I just I noticed that there was a direct correlation with her between her attitude and her altitude. And so I just thought I would have a much better chance of getting a yes if I proposed to her at 10,000 feet.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And there isn't, a change that happens. And I think there's something about being outdoors in nature. And, it's interesting because this album takes you to all these just magical places. Even if you've never been there, you feel that. And then some of the tracks are New York City, and I was like, okay. I was patient. I listened, I wanted to hear the difference between I thought, okay, what's going to happen? Is it going to be, honking cars, horns, and things like that in there? But it's interesting how the rhythm changed when you got into the New York City songs, and then also you did New York 2.0 in there too, and it's just as beautiful. So there was this. The rhythm changed up to be a little bit faster, and yet at the same time it still had that beauty to it. So tell us a little bit about that.
So about the New York City pieces.
Yes.
New York City is a city that I'm very attached to because I grew up just outside of New York. So I've been in and around Manhattan and the five boroughs pretty much all my life. And still travel there regularly every year. I have a lot of family and friends who are still in New York City. So it's a city that has a unique energy to it, and I wanted to do something to try and capture that feeling. The first New York City piece on the CD is a piece that was inspired by I just happened to have a free day in New York City, which is pretty rare to have a solo free day, and it was a gorgeous spring day. And I just got in the subway in the morning, and I spent the entire day just traveling 3 or 4 subway stops, getting out, walking around the neighborhood, soaking up the city. Then I'd get back in the subway and go another 3 or 4 stops, and spent the entire day that way. And so I wanted to try and capture some of the diversity of the city as it has, it may be the most diverse city in the world, certainly one of the most diverse cities. So that's what inspired that. And then New York City 2.0 was inspired on a return trip to New York, and I was actually in a hotel room. I was overlooking the Hudson River, and I was practicing performing New York City, the first piece, and just started sort of improvising around it and came up with the ideas for the second piece, which is sort of a much more rhythmic kind of a piece.
Yeah.
And that second piece pretty much got written in its entirety that morning, overlooking the Hudson. So I talked to my engineer about it. I wasn't sure about having 2 New York City pieces on the record, but the guy I was working with who was doing the recording and the engineering thought both of them were worthy.
How did you do the rhythm part where it's percussive? It almost sounds like finger clicking. Tell us about that. Is that on your guitar, or what are you doing?
So that is sort of part of the genre now of modern fingerstyle playing, the ability to play percussive parts while you're playing regular parts at the same time. So none of that is overdubbed or anything like that. Those parts are played simultaneously, and there's several different kinds of techniques to get that done. And you heard a little bit of it in Thousand Island Lakes. The middle part of that tune has this same kind of bass drum and snare drum sound, and that's done down towards the bottom of the guitar. In New York City 2.0, it's actually done towards the top of the guitar, and you use the palm of the right hand to do a bass drum sound. And you can do that at the same time as hitting bass strings with the thumb, and then the snare drum is done with the index finger on the top of the guitar, and there's just this sort of technique that's become somewhat popular now amongst people who play this style.
It's really interesting to me because there's like parts of your playing on this that takes me. It's like old world to me. Like Wind River to me is almost very ancient, almost like Baroque in a way. Like the way you play that, and it's so mystical and pretty yet wide open. It's amazing, this style, and you don't really hear that much of this everywhere. You really don't. It's definitely different, which is awesome to me. There's an album that I love that I've worn out, and it's the soundtrack to the TV show 30 Something. I have nothing to say about the show, but I have to say that album, I love that album so much, and just people like him, and then like Philip Glass, it's so hard to find it, and then I heard your music, I'm like, oh, I found new stuff. I'm so excited.
That's great. Yeah, you have to kind of know where to look for this genre. There are a bunch of other players out there who are doing this. It's interesting that you should mention Wind River. That piece is a little unique in terms of the instrument. That's an 8-string guitar that was made for me, and the instrument is strung in a way that is fairly unique, so that what is normally the lowest pitched instrument string rather, I actually replaced that with a higher pitched string, and I'm doing this to imitate classical Indian instruments like a sitar, which I studied for years, or a sarod. So there's a lot of resonance in those instruments because of the number of strings and the number of strings that are tuned in unison. So that's the kind of sound, and it tickles me when people respond to it, because there is sort of a little secret behind why that particular piece has this sort of resonance to it.
It's beautiful.
Thank
I love
you.
that, and I was like, ooh. So when you decided to do the album, did you say, okay, this is all going to be about my travels and life, or how did the whole idea come about?
So I had a bunch of material recorded, and I was looking for some kind of a unifying theme for the record, and it just occurred to me that in certain instances there were experiences that I had traveling that really left me with kind of an emotive feeling that lended itself to abstract music, music without any lyric. So that's kind of how the idea came about, and once I had the idea, it was a lot easier to get the pieces written and recorded.
I want to go back to the percussive side of it. I was just thinking, you know, connecting now with Glass House. Now, I'm sorry, I've just now got into that now. So it's like a double doozy for me. I'm happy. I get new music.
Okay, great.
You know, so I was watching some of your YouTube videos and the way you and David play together, and it's just this. You're very, very tight, and yet it's just so it's magical. And some of his singing is very percussive as well. So it's kind of interesting how the two of you do this acoustic music and bring your own percussion in through you playing the guitar and some of his singing.
Yeah, it's a great observation. David is, I really believe that he is probably one of the top 10 vocal drummers in the world. And I say that because very prominent people will go to David to learn that technique, and David tours regularly with Bobby McFerrin. In fact, he's got a tour coming up with McFerrin in Europe just in the spring, early summer, and Bobby is only taking two singers out with him on the road, one of which is David. So, this is a technique that his vocal drumming has been developed over many, many years, and it's a wonderful thing to do live, to have a percussive acoustic guitar and a singer who can do vocal drumming. Because we do. It's not your typical. There's a guy with a steel string guitar and there's a singer.
No, it's not. It's so cool.
It's not a Simon and Garfunkel type of situation at all.
It's to me it's really neat because you balance each other out, and it's like it's like two completely different instruments. You know, to be able to have that, it's like, you know, your voice has more than one instrument, your guitar playing has more than one instrument, and listening to this album and going through, you're using it in so many different ways. And the one, too, is the Flight of the Rays. Tell us about that, because that has like a flight feeling to it, and then it's got like a little, it's like splashes in there.
Well, okay, so Flight of the Rays is the one piece on the CD that is written and performed on a double neck acoustic guitar, and wow. I came across a player from Boston. His name is Ian Ethan Case, and Ian is the master of the double neck acoustic guitar. Talk about a niche genre of playing. And so he has these marvelous percussive techniques and things like that. And of course, when you have 18 strings, your tuning possibilities are really sort of thrown open to the wind. So that piece uses a lot of different techniques, percussive stuff and harmonics, and the other thing that gives it its sort of watery effect is I use effects that I have on a board in front of me on a floorboard, and I programmed this one effect to try and give it that sort of swirly, watery feeling, because the piece is about an experience I had with manta rays off the coast of Hawaii.
Oh, neat. This is cool.
That is cool. That is super cool.
The music is really nature.
Yeah. So because so that was in Hawaii, and it's a very fluid song. Mm-hmm. So when you were there, did you listen to any of the traditional slack key guitar playing out there?
So I've heard bunches of slack key guitar playing. I don't recall that. I mean, we've traveled to Hawaii probably 5 or 6 times, and I don't recall that trip actually going and hearing slack key. I don't think that piece really has much of an inspiration in terms of traditional Hawaiian music. It was really written to sort of try and capture this this really fascinating time we had in very close proximity to these manta rays, to the point where one very large one actually sort of swept up against my body.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
There's some creepy, crazy stuff with that. Like people die.
Well, not from manta rays. Manta rays are actually super gentle.
Okay, well that's cool.
Yeah, stingrays are another deal altogether. But the manta rays are actually very gentle creatures, and some of them are just enormous. 15-foot wingspans.
Wow.
That's magic. Yeah, it was really just a magical night. So.
Yeah, the why I brought up the slack key too is I don't know if you know Makana. He's out of Hawaii, and he's one of the top 10. He's basically grown up and been a protege for most of the very traditional older school slack key guitarists, and he kind of blends some modern things in and does some. It's not, there's some traditional songs that he does, but he also has this other kind of slide. I can't explain it. So I would love to hear you both play together. It's like it would be
interesting.
Wouldn't it be so beautiful because you guys have that connection to the earth or the water, I should say, in manta rays.
Yeah.
You have that kind of vibe where I think when music can touch into the core of nature, like and because when you think about it, when you listen to birds or you listen to nature, that is music. But when there's people that can really do it, and you're one of those people who can really, you're just like, you're listening to nature. And that to me is like the top of everything. That's the top of the world when it comes to it. So do you listen to nature when you're out hiking and traveling around to these places and hanging out with manta rays?
Absolutely. Probably my favorite sound is standing in the middle of a water system in the mountains. You just walk out, skip out on the rocks, and so you're in the middle of a water system, and just close your eyes and listen. And it is a sound that is it's just remarkable, the depth of that sound to hear. Water flowing all around you. And that's true of, waterfalls. I mean, there are a lot of different kind of contexts in which you can experience that, rivers as well. But I just love these stream systems where you have different water flows all around you. It's a very orchestral sound.
I agree, Nancy. I know Nancy just wants to make a bunch of movies now with you.
Yeah, no, I can feel like sunlight.
I know.
It's trippy, man.
I know. Like we need to sit down with some good wine and listen. That's what I'm thinking with this.
Well, it just reminds me of certain little animals and how they act, especially when you do the harmonics. To me, it's like chipmunks. You know how crazy they are, and they just kind of ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, when it goes up like that, and it sounds like little bells when you do that.
Yeah, the harmonics, the sort of expanded harmonics is also a key to this modern fingerstyle genre. So it's in a way it's kind of expected that if you're playing in this style, you're going to use the full harmonics range of the instrument, and part of what happens with the harmonics is that I'm playing these just remarkable instruments that I'm very, very lucky to have. I am a friend of a wonderful Canadian luthier named Michael Greenfield, and Michael is one of the top 3 steel string guitar luthiers in the world. His instruments are played by the top modern fingerstyle players all over the place. It makes getting those harmonics to really pop and sound like those beautiful church bells so much easier when you're playing a great instrument that's been made for you.
And because there's this clarity, but it's still got the the earth tone. Does that make sense? Where it's still round, and
Yeah.
it doesn't, where some music's recorded, it's like got that tinny kind of flat sound to it. There's this roundness and yet this clarity at the same time.
It keeps playing.
Yeah, Michael was very happy to get the CD, and he commented very, very favorably on the quality of the recording, and that was one of the most thrilling things I heard as feedback to the CD, because Michael literally knows the sound of these instruments from the inside since he built them. And he's very, very attuned to good quality sound. And the engineer that I worked with, I have to just give some kudos to. Dan was just an incredible engineer, and I just could not have asked for a better situation to record with. And it's actually the first time I have, for many decades now, done my own recording in my own studio. And David and I have recorded in my studio for many, many years. But with this record, I just decided there was no way I was going to take on the roles of producer, recording engineer, and player all in the same person. And that was a good decision.
You need someone from the outside. Otherwise, you get too into it.
It was this way I could focus on the playing, and that was the right thing to do. And Dan was just absolutely amazing. A good recording engineer is going to be part psychotherapist, part critic. You got to know when to throw in the right jokes at the right time. Oh my God, he hasn't taken a breath in 5 minutes. Do I need to give him oxygen? All that stuff.
When I look at recording and performing, that it's two different things. There's a focus that goes with it. And on the vocal side, I understand you do these vocal warm-ups and get into that zone. For you as a guitarist, are there warm-ups you do before you record or perform, and are they different between recording and performing? How you prepare for the audience, or actually getting it laying down that track?
I don't do a lot of formal warming up. I mean, if I'm performing, we're going to have a sound check, and we will be well rehearsed. So the sound check becomes my sort of warming up, and with recording, it's a similar scenario. There's going to be 15 minutes of getting the microphones in exactly the right place, and so that's going to be my warm up. But at this point I've been playing long enough that I'm not going to sit there and play scales for a half hour or something like that.
Scales, that's I think scales can ruin it for kids getting into school. Getting into music.
Yes.
I think I know you've been playing since you were 6 years old. That's when you first started playing.
That's when I started on piano.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. That you go from there. And did they, when you started learning, did you get put into the scale mode and you're not allowed to play rock and roll?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Hannon Virtuoso book. I still remember it with horror. I still have to discuss it with my therapist every couple of weeks.
Now, so what was it that got you into the finger picking and that style of music and playing that way? Was there certain musicians that inspired you? Yeah,
there was a certain musician, and there was a moment that did it for me. And the musician is a man, or was a man, named Michael Hedges. Michael is considered to be the godfather of this style of playing. He unfortunately died at a very early age, and he's from the Bay Area, from the southern part of the Bay Area around Palo Alto. And I was aware of Michael, and I went to hear him perform in San Francisco at the Great American Music Hall. No one, of course, had any idea that he would be gone 3 months after that show. It was his last San Francisco performance. And I went by myself, and I was, it was just one of those extreme clarifying moments for me. Within about 1 minute of the start of that concert, it was clear to me that this is what I needed to be doing.
Wow.
And
Aren't those moments cool? Life-defining times.
Yeah, it was. It was very defining. And before that, I was principally an electric guitarist. You know, and I had an acoustic guitar, but didn't really do much with it. And I put my electric guitars up for sale the next day.
Wow.
And it turned out that Michael Hedges and I had very similar backgrounds, very similar musical tastes. He also had a master's degree in composition. He's a very schooled player, and we loved some of the very same composers, Stravinsky and Bartók and Bach. He continues to sort of be a light for modern fingerstyle guitar players. In fact, they recently, just a few months ago, there was a big concert in San Francisco to memorialize him. So that was there was a moment right there where I decided to go down this road.
Well, we're glad.
Wow.
We're glad for sure. Now, I Must Tell Jesus is a song on the album, and that a lot of us are going to think, okay, so where was that in the country? But tell us about that, because that's a very special song for you.
It is, and that piece at the end of the CD is the one outlier in terms of not being inspired by places I have traveled to, but rather inspired by the woman that raised me. My mom died when I was 7 years old, breast cancer, and I was raised by an incredible African-American woman from North Carolina. And it was interesting because I was raised in a Jewish household on Long Island, but I was raised by a very deeply religious, black woman Baptist,
cool.
and who I went to church with, and
Baptist churches are so much
and
fun.
all that. And she really lived her religion, and she sang spirituals in the house all the time. And I Must Tell Jesus, that melody is probably the very first melody that I really stored in my brain, because I woke up to that melody pretty much every morning, and I would hear it throughout the day because she would sing that. That was her favorite Negro spiritual, and so she died at the age of 99.
Wow.
In 2015, and she took care of me as I grew up, and then as she got older, I took care of her. And when she died, I wanted to do something to memorialize her musically, and so I arranged "I Must Tell Jesus" for modern fingerstyle guitar, and recorded it and made a YouTube video. With a little introduction about her and some photos of her, and that's how that piece came to be.
And also, when you actually have the hard CD, you have something special with that in there too. Photos.
Yes, in the booklet. There are photos. There's photos of Rommel. There's one of her walking me down the aisle when I got married. And there is a poem written by my daughter for Rommel as well. So it's very much of a tribute to her. My daughter is, I have to say, brag a little bit, but she is a remarkable poet and is now serving as the Oakland Youth Poet Laureate. And
awesome.
So, it's just an extra little benefit to getting the CD to be able to have that poem, because it's a pretty extraordinary piece.
I think that is so important that poetry stays alive. It's one of our most ancient forms of storytelling and creativity, and it just is such an important thing. So I love to hear youth involved in poetry. Stay on the line. I want to play this. We've got to play this.
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
play this, everyone. I Must Tell Jesus. Take a listen. You're listening to Big Blend Radio, and you just heard I Must Tell Jesus, and this is off of the album Places by Mark Vickness. And again, you can go to his website, markvickness.com. You can get the album on CD Baby, Apple Music, iTunes, all those great places. And man, that is so touching, Mark. You know, and it actually takes me to the South, and I can see those little chapels out there.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I saw was a little white chapel.
Yeah,
and then,
thank you.
Then I go up to the one in that little chapel in Yosemite National Park.
Oh, yes, I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that like that? Now, you see, that would be another place to get hitched.
Indeed.
At that chapel or get married there. But, yeah, that, you know, it's interesting how you build rhythm. And how, I mean, did you play this all in one take? Because there's like things going on, yet it's all flowing. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, that's a one take piece.
Wow.
And yeah, I play that pretty constantly. Yeah, that's. I mean, I'm proud of that arrangement that actually combines both this very simple, you know, gorgeous melody from the piece, but the harmonies are actually very neoclassical, sort of Stravinskyan types of harmonies. And when you put all that together on that instrument, and I don't know if you guys can sort of hear the quality there in your studio of that guitar, but that is the baritone guitar that Michael Greenfield made for me. And that baritone instrument is really a unique guitar. in terms of the presence of its sound. It makes playing, because a lot of those chords, most of the chords in I Must Tell Jesus are actually only 3-note voicings, but they sound bigger than a lot of 6-note chords that are played on lesser instruments. And I don't know how Michael does what he does. I'm sure it involves a wand of some sort. I just went and got the guitar, and it is a remarkable instrument to play.
It sounds like there's at least 3 people playing.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so that's just from the counterpoint, and that's from being trained as a composer and paying attention to the fact that there are 3 different melodies going on at the same time.
It's beautiful.
Amazing. Yeah.
You know, it just, to me, again, it goes into that nature world, and I don't know, and that's what nature has, that chorus.
I'm all mellowed out now.
I know, but at the same time, listening to your music, you know Pierre Ben-Susan.
Oh yes, so Pierre is one of the top modern fingerstyle players.
Yeah, because we listen to him, and he's been on our show a number of times. Every time he comes to the States, he calls us on the road somewhere in some place. He'll pull over and tell us what it looks like. He's a wonderful performer. And I was like, and I think he connected with Michael Hedges. Now that's where I've heard the name Michael Hedges. It's because of him.
Absolutely. That's all true. And Pierre actually plays Michael Greenfield's guitars as well.
See, that's it, because he was also, I think it was Louder guitars. I'm going to get it wrong. I don't want to get it wrong, but Loudon.
So he plays Loudons, but he has a Greenfield. He's one of Michael's artists as well.
Wow.
Yeah, and Pierre he's an amazing player. But that's a good example of another modern fingerstyle player who is really, he's at the top of the food chain as far as I'm concerned.
He's awesome. But every time he comes on, we talk about nature too. Is that connection with nature? I just never put it into this is modern fingerstyle picking. I just was like, this is really beautiful music. That's my genre. We're not good at putting labels on music. It's terrible. Even when we put things up on our site, it's like, okay, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this. But I'm learning so much from you. I appreciate this. Speaking of the guitars, and you were talking about having a double neck guitar. Nancy and I were looking on your website, markvickness.com. Everybody go there, and looking in your photo gallery where you have the different guitars you're playing, and the one has like a curved. It's a 2-neck. Is that the one you're talking about? It's so beautiful. This just looks so handcrafted, and it's curved at the top.
All right, so I'm gonna have to see which one. Is it black?
I'm gonna go on your website again now. No.
I should know what's on my website. Let me get over there, and I'll take a look.
Because Nancy and I were both like, I want one of those. And is it even a guitar? Maybe it's not a guitar.
Okay, hang on a second, and I will be with you on this here.
Yeah, we're on the gallery.
Okay, so is it the home page?
Second, third,
picture of
third
me.
one.
Third
it's
page.
The third photo, and so the top has 5 strings.
Okay,
yeah, 5 strings at the top.
Oh, I see. You're in the photo gallery.
Yes.
Okay, now I got you. All right, now I'm with you. Okay, so that is a harp guitar. So the second photo is me playing that 8-string guitar that I used for Wind River. The third photo is a harp guitar, which I no longer have. So that guitar. Harp guitar is something that is now regularly used in modern fingerstyle playing, and that one had 5. They call them sub-bass strings. And so those are tuned to 5, low strings, low pitches, like a bass guitar, and then you have the 6 strings that are like a normal guitar. There are. I actually sold the instrument because what was problematic for me with that instrument is that once you set those strings, the pitches of those sub-bass strings, there's nothing you can do with them. They're just set. so you have 5 bass notes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and so that to me was a little bit limiting. And so that's why I wound up with both. I mean, I have an 8-string guitar. I have the baritone guitar, which is tuned normally a fourth lower than a regular guitar, so that one has a very rich bass sound. And then I cheat with a pedal that I have that I can use on any of my guitars, and that pedal will automatically add an octave, a note an octave below the notes that I set it to for a certain range, where if I get down to that range, it will then add an octave below. And so I have essentially, so David and I are looking for a situation where, you know, we have drumming and we have bass playing and we have guitar playing and we have singing and we have a whole band, and it's just the two of us. That's
amazing. Do you ever teach? Because I'm learning so much with you on the show right now. I'm like, I want to go to class.
I love to teach. I have taught in various capacities, you know, over the years. I'm not doing any formal teaching at the moment. But yeah, I love to teach music. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Awesome. That is good to hear. Now, and lastly, on the guitar side of things, which I think is really neat because you seem to have a very good connection with your guitars and Greenfield guitars. And is that something, have you seen them make it? Because to me, that's the interesting part is when you hear guitarists talk about their instrument and really know the inside and out of it and how, you know, when you really, it becomes one, you know, with you.
Right.
So have you ever seen them make it, like, and make guitars? Do you ever get fascinated in how that works?
Yeah,
cool.
so the 8-string guitar was not made by Michael Greenfield. It was made by California Luthier, and we went down to his shop while the guitar was being made, and I was in very close touch with him about the design of that instrument. And I have been to Michael's shop in Montreal several times. So I have, and there's a wonderful actual video or film. There's an hour-long film. They did a documentary film about Michael and the way he makes instruments. So yeah, I've been up to his shop and you know, sort of seen the whole process. And we've been in close touch around, particularly around the baritone instrument that he made for me. And I've been to other luthiers' shops, so yeah, I am familiar with the process.
It's neat. I think it's so neat, and it's so important that people understand the crafting of instruments. You know, that they're not these. Like they're not Walmart instruments. You know
no. It's a high art. It is a high art and science as well. There's a lot of science that goes into making a really great instrument. And yeah, I'm just super fortunate to have connected with Michael Greenfield. He's an important friend of mine.
Well, you've got to send him this interview.
Yeah, no, I may do that.
They look like sculptures.
I know. They're so beautiful. It's just, to me, the whole I just think even having 8 strings, that, you know, 12 strings I always thought was really neat. I remember trying to play one, and I'm like, wow.
Well, the homepage, I should say, of the website, of my website, the one where I'm sitting with the red shirt on. So that is one of Michael's instruments. That is the guitar that was played on Thousand Island Lakes.
Oh, cool.
And that is a just stunningly beautiful guitar. That is a good example of Michael's approach. Is both actual art and potential art.
See,
because I could just look at the instrument all day.
See, I know that's. Now, do you name your guitars?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I do not do that.
What about your car? Not even
No,
that?
I don't name my car either.
Oh,
so I'm trying to think of do I have any inanimate objects that I name, but I really don't.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we do. We name everything. But
Yeah.
then
Okay.
that's because we're girls.
Right. Well, if you guys want to come up
thing.
with some names for the instrument.
Yeah. I know. Now, before you go, we're going to close with Wonder Lake Suite, and I wanted you to talk about that because that's also really special, and it's just like this is magnificent. You tell everybody about this because this is a different way of. I mean, the whole album is really creative, but it's like afterwards that you sit back and go, okay, I want to go back and hear this because it just all flows so beautifully, and as a listener, you're just on this journey. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, how did he do that?
Well, thank you.
That's why you're going to listen to it more than once, everybody. You're going to listen to it over and over again because it's pretty mind-blowing how you're doing all this.
Thank you. Well, so Wonder Lake Suite consists of three pieces, and it's inspired by Wonder Lake is right near Denali in Alaska.
Ooh.
And a lot of people have seen photographs of Wonder Lake because it's this big sort of mirror-like lake that sits at the foot of Mount Denali, and there are a lot of iconic photographs of Denali behind, giant snow-covered, highest peak in the U.S. With Wonder Lake in the foreground, and those photographs are all lies. Because when you go to Denali, what you will find is that it's almost impossible to find a day where you will see this sort of clear blue sky shimmering mirror-like lake and things like that, because the mountain generates its own weather and is almost always at least very misty, and so it's a very magical place to spend time, and the light around Denali is really magical because you have a constant changing fog and mist against a bright green tundra with this just epic mountain sitting there, which you never see in its entirety.
Wow.
So as the mist rises, you see parts of the mountain. And then the light, you get these amazing God beams that come down through the clouds and illuminate parts of the tundra to this super shimmering bright green color in the midst of this sort of gray landscape with all these mountains around.
Wow.
So this is sort of the feeling that I was trying to that at least inspired me to start working on this piece. And so the piece starts with a very sort of ballad-like melody that is supposed to be hopefully fairly mysterious sounding.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets into the actual Wonder Lake piece itself, which is much more rhythmic and full of all kinds of sudden changes in texture, which is supposed to be inspired by these just rapid fire changes in light when you're sitting there, when you're at Wonder Lake. And then it closes actually with a string quartet that I wrote. It's about a minute-long string quartet because I needed to find some way to transition out of the traveling part of the CD and into what would be the end with I Must Tell Jesus. And so I took the elements, the musical elements from Wonder Lake and from I Must Tell Jesus, and I blended them into this brief string quartet transition.
And that's why we play things backwards here.
And it's actually a nice way to do it because your listeners have heard I Must Tell Jesus, so you'll hear that melody from I Must Tell Jesus is very prominent in the string quartet piece, but the harmonies, the chords that I'm using are actually taken from Wonder Lake, and then they're blended that way. And the piece, the suite itself makes use of a lot of percussive techniques and a lot of pedal effects, and it's really trying to give the listener the full range of modern fingerstyle techniques. So tons of harmonics, tons of percussion, and then I should say there's a coda just before the string quartet. That's a pretty funky little piece at the end of the suite there, and that is one of the few places on the CD where I actually had to multi-track, and I overdubbed about, I think it was probably 8 different parts to make this sort of big funky thing.
This is cool. I mean, this is
way cool.
It's like yeah. I mean, this is you. Now you're talking about this too. Number one, you said blended a lot. We like that.
Yeah.
We love the word blend is good because that's part of the making everything flow. When you listen to an album, to me, it's about close your eyes and just hear it and take in everything about it and don't do anything else but that. And it's definitely one of those albums, and it does flow and it does blend from one thing to the next. And just as you get comfortable, it says, no, now we're going to go here, which is good. So to me, that's that beauty, and I love this. And I was like, we have to play Wonder Lake Suite.
Oh, great.
But before you go, are you going to be touring at all or doing any performances that people can keep an eye open for, getting to see you perform live?
Yeah, so we actually, David and I are doing a show here in Oakland, on June 2nd, which is not yet up on the website. That's a Saturday night show. We are doing a show with a remarkable bass player. His name is Michael Manring. And Michael Manring was one of those original artists that was sort of in the group of artists with Michael Hedges. And he's sort of the Michael Hedges of bass playing, and he's going to be doing a show with us, which I'm so excited about. So that's going to be at a venue called Piedmont Piano Company here in Oakland on June 2nd. And then we're working on some other shows, but we have to work around David's tour schedule with Bobby McFerrin. So as that gets locked in, we'll know what our other dates are.
Wow.
Well, I would like to really encourage you to go to nationalparksartsfoundation.org and have a look at that website.
Yeah, I've already written that down. Yeah.
Good.
I'm going to go do that.
That's a perfect match for you.
Yeah, and if you do anything, we'll connect you to Tanya Ortega, the foundation or the president. She's the founder of it, and they have these. I mean, these are a month you stay in a national park site for a month and create. And then awesome. At the end you do a show or a workshop or something like that. And we've had a few musicians on our show from it and poets. And then they had this really cool one for veterans, like in Gettysburg in Big Bend, that veterans get to go for a month and stay in this beautiful place in Gettysburg in this farmhouse, this old farmhouse that some say it's haunted.
Yeah.
Why not?
Cool.
But yeah, right now they have one for Hawaii, and they come in because of the way grants work. It's like it comes in, so the best thing to do is sign up for the newsletter. It comes in that, hey, we've got this opportunity, everybody submit now, because it comes and goes real fast, the different parts. But to me, wouldn't that be, I don't know if you've heard of Will Oldham, Bonnie Prince Billy, his name, and he's a songwriter that's done so much. He went and stayed at the volcanoes and called in and did it. It's so fun when they call in from the volcanoes. We never know what's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, how cool is that to go?
That's fantastic.
That would be epic to do that. I would like to go and perform right next to it and see, what happens. But everybody, again, go get the album Places. It is beautiful, as you could hear. We're going to close with this beautiful Wonder Lake Suite. And again, everyone, the website is markvickness.com, and the album is on CD Baby, and you can get it on iTunes and Apple Music. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been a true pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Nancy and Lisa. I really, really appreciate it.
You take care, and everybody keep up with Glasshouse too. Hey, is that true that you're recording more music soon?
Yes, we're constantly recording.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let us know. Okay.
Okay.
Come back on. Here it is, everyone. Wonder Lake Suite. Take care. everyone, again, that was Wonder Lake Suite off of the album Places by Mark-Vickness. Again, mark-vickness.com. That is just mind-blowing, and it's so touching and takes you on a journey. Like as I said, the album is one of those journey albums. Isn't that beautiful?
I want to take the music outside and play it to the birds.
I know, I do
because,
too.
Because, you know, they're all looking in right now.
They're all going like, we can hear that. It's beautiful. And I do like the funky part of it too.
Yeah.
Awesome conversation. I learned so much.
I know.
Yeah, that was really cool. Everyone, we will be back tomorrow because we are daily. As you know, we air daily Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and Friday through Sunday we air 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Our full schedule is at bigblendradio.com. Thank you all for joining us, and a big shout out of thank you to Spontaneous, the award-winning song game. It is the song game. It is the amazing board game. Thank you, Robert Ridgway, for being our music sponsor. Take care, everybody. Here's a little word from Rob. Spontaneous Rob is here on Big Blend Radio to share how his Amazon best-selling and award-winning board game works. Spontaneous, the song game, is perfect for families. I think just about anyone who enjoys music. Rob, how old or how young do we have to be to play Spontaneous?
You can be any age because everyone listens to music, and you don't even have to be talented to play. In fact, that's our slogan is sing it or shout it, talent not required.
We like that. We like that around here. And how many people do you need to play the board game?
Usually works best with 4 or more people. I'd say the more the merrier because then you have more song banks involved in the game.
Okay, so when you talk about song banks, let's talk about how this game works. Because I know when I opened up Spontaneous, I didn't have to really read too many rules. It seems that it's pretty easy. So just how easy is it?
It's really pretty simple. It's based on the concept of word association with lyrics. So someone will say a word, and whoever can spontaneously burst into a tune that contains that word would win the round. So somebody, the example of how the game came about was somebody said, "We're going to the mountains tomorrow if you want to go," and another person spontaneously burst into a tune that contained mountain. And
so, like, if I said, "Ain't no mountain high enough," that would be good?
Yeah, that is all you need.
And
at
I
least
didn't
5
even
words.
sing it.
It's that simple.
So did I win? That's what I want to know. Did
sing
I
it
win?
or shout it. Talent not required.
Easy peasy, everybody. Spontaneous is the song game, and that's where you go to get it. Go to songgame.com. Of course, you'll also find it on Amazon. Thanks so much, Rob.
Thank you. I appreciate it.